While there are no story spoilers in this review, there is footage of certain recruitable characters throughout the campaign. Watch at your discretion. Unicorn Overlord is a towering achievement in the genre of tactical RPGs. Vanillaware's magnum opus, a project so ambitious that it took 10 years to develop and almost bankrupt the company. It's a monumental game, one that had me staying up till 2 AM most nights, tinkering with its mechanics and creating the perfect army to journey into unknown enemy territory. While the game's story isn't as complex and mind-melting as its predecessor, 13 Sentinels, it more than makes up for it through its incredibly intricate battle system. I would like to preface this review by stating I am in no way a seasoned tactical RPG player. In fact, Unicorn Overlord is the first tactical RPG I've played from start to finish. I've dabbled with the genre in the past with titles such as Final Fantasy Tactics, Fire Emblem, and Advance Wars, but there always came a point, usually the mid-game, where I just gave up. The mechanics didn't click with me, and the permadeath element of Fire Emblem added a level of stress that I do not welcome in most video games. I would simply restart the battle if anyone died, completely destroying the high-risk, anxiety-inducing mechanics that make the game what it is. What sets Unicorn Overlord apart from other games in the genre is its labyrinthine battle system. I'm not over-exaggerating when I say that I put at least 20 hours into my unit formation alone. A catalyst for this engaging experimentation is the game's art style and treatment of its beautifully designed 2D characters. Each unique character in Unicorn Overlord is earned through a nail-biting battle, where the player must journey from enemy strongholds to forts to towns and cities, liberating the region from the overreaching grasp of the evil Zenoiran army who have conquered the rich green pastures you once called home. It's an irresistible gameplay loop that shows you a clear path ahead in its world map, where the final battle is presented to you as an option just 3 to 4 hours into the game. Having an end goal to work towards really compelled me to see it through to the end. Vanillaware has graced us with a fresh take on the tactical RPG, and certainly to my mind the finest example of what makes this genre really tick. To understand how Vanillaware has pulled off such a feat, we must first appreciate what came before. Final Fantasy Tactics, released for the Sony PlayStation in 1997, is the gold standard for the genre, and although Square had already played around with tactical RPGs before with Front Mission for the Super Famicom, the company opted to employ Quest, developers of Battle Ogre, to bring their expertise to Final Fantasy Tactics, perhaps a more fitting comparison to Unicorn Overlord. Helmed by Yasumi Matsuno, who later went on to direct Vagrant Story, and was a key designer on Final Fantasy XII, Quest was a small company that originally developed NES action games before being defined by the Ogre series. Wherein most tactical RPGs where the player controls single combatants, Ogre Battle differed in that the player creates units of up to 5 fighters, placed strategically in a 2x3 grid. How you placed different classes together affected the output of the battle, and while these skirmishes played out automatically, how you aligned the delicate puzzle pieces of class synergy greatly contributed to success in battle. Political machinations are abundant here, but the Ogre series was groundbreaking at its time in its portrayal of the complicated ethical nature of war, often inspired by real-life conflicts throughout history, with Tactics Ogre being an allegory for the Yugoslav wars of the 90s, and Final Fantasy Tactics taking inspiration from the War of the Roses. Ogre Battle was released internationally to critical acclaim and paved the way for its sequel Tactics Ogre, its spiritual successor Final Fantasy Tactics, which defined the genre as a whole, and eventually Unicorn Overlord.
wonder if those two are at it again. Well, that takes care of the altar. I suppose I should be getting back.
The parallels between Unicorn Overlord and Ogre Battle's unit formation is clear, but Unicorn Overlord builds upon it by introducing a gambit system, similarly seen in Final Fantasy XII, where certain actions will only trigger based on predetermined conditions set by the player. Do you want one of your combatants to only buff an elven archer before their ice arrow charge attack, but only if their HP is above 75% and only at night? There's a gambit for that. The level of freedom and space for experimentation here is absolutely staggering, mind-melting even. It's one of the most engaging and satisfying combat systems I've experienced in a video game, and one that rewards players that take the time to comprehend its perplexing features. Over the course of my 70-hour playthrough, I began to think of myself as some kind of quantum physicist, delicately constructing unstoppable units who could batter anything I threw at them. Once you have created a harmonious alliance through the game's mechanics, each character's personality begins to shine, and in turn the player is rewarded for tackling the arduous unit builder.
Prepare for your end.
Another aspect where Unicorn Overlord differs from its predecessors is its battle arenas. Units move organically and are not tied to a grid system seen in other games such as Fire Emblem. All battles play out in real time, with the ability to pause combat and plan out your next attack once you have obliterated a key enemy stronghold. Units move at a different pace depending on who is leading said unit, with each leader offering different movement options to tackle varying levels of terrain. If there are enemies just out of reach on the other side of a ravine that your cavalry can't access, simply bring in a unit with a flying type leader to traverse mountain tops and rivers in order to combat the enemy head on. The game also offers various watchtowers and garrisons that are particularly useful for range types, who can offer support auxiliary fire or healing to your neighbouring units. The game drip feeds these new mechanics and enemy types in a way that doesn't become overwhelming, but also doesn't hold the player's hand. The gambit system is there to be evaluated by the player themselves, and conjuring up new ideas and seeing them succeed in battle is one of the game's more fulfilling elements. This is all visualised through the game's gorgeous character designs and animation, and the painterly 2D art style that Vanillaware is famous for.
I could raise my sword at any moment, you know.
I am aware, but I understand why you did it.
This distinct art style can be traced as far back as 2007's Odin Sphere, an action RPG developed by Vanillaware for the PlayStation 2. Opting for 2D graphics at a time when the industry was moving to 3D was an ambitious move by company founder and game director George Kamitani, who also acted as art and character designer for Odin Sphere, as high-resolution 2D artwork was usually too expensive to implement. However, in this case, the 2D style lent a theatrical feel to the game, perfectly matching Odin Sphere's Shakespearean atmosphere. Unicorn Overlord shares this Shakespearean sensibility, with its overarching narrative of revenge and love, power and politics. In this respect, the art style is a perfect fit, and having cutscenes play out like a traditional stage production really sells this theatrical approach. The game's OST contributes to this as well, with music being composed by Bass Escape, led by Mitsuhiro Kaneda, long-standing collaborators of Vanillaware. Sweeping orchestral pieces exemplify tense battles.
We've no time to falter. Forward!
While the more sombre and ambient scores of the Elven Forest of Elheim deliver fantastical overtones to the game's world building. Each one of Unicorn Overlord's 60+ unique characters are lovingly crafted, from their overall design to their backstory and motivations for joining your army. Each character has a tale to tell, and everyone comes together to create a powerful sense of unity throughout your military force that negates the stereotypical power of friendship trope that JRPGs are known for. They're far from the vapid stereotypes that often become commonplace in casts of this size. Each character that joins the militia has been somehow affected by Zenoria's grip on that region, whether it's in the form of a mind-controlled sibling or someone who has been forced out of their hometown. Unicorn Overlord's treatment of these characters is heartfelt and incentivizes the player to take back control of these occupied areas of the world. Every character has their distinct personality, which is greatly amplified by the game's heavily ornamented dialogue.
Enlighten me, Valmor. To what end do you seek to usurp my throne?
Self-centered fool. It's not merely your throne I aspire towards. It's all of them.
The localization of Unicorn Overlord has been subjected to heavy scrutiny online, with Yasuo Matsuno, creator of Final Fantasy Tactics, chiming in on social media. He states that, "I believe that it is unacceptable for someone to alter a work without considering the original author's intent. However, when the market or language is different, a direct translation may not convey the intended meaning accurately." The English localization has exacerbated the more simplified Japanese writing, perhaps becoming detrimental to certain characters' intended personalities. Odin Sphere's localization was treated similarly by Atlus in 2007. Mike Mika, dialogue editor for Odin Sphere, claimed, "I took a hint from the developer and brushed up on the bard himself, William Shakespeare. A little bit of King Lear and A Midsummer's Night's Dream influenced my writing, and reading Beowulf helped me get some of the darker tones." Language informs culture, and in a video game such as Persona or Yakuza, where Japanese culture is almost its own character in the game, the localization must be immaculate in order to inform the player of the intricacies of that culture. However, in the case of Unicorn Overlord, a game that is rooted in Western iconography, the translation does well to encapsulate the game's Baroque aesthetic. Vitor Costa wrote in Superjump in 2022 that, "For developers of politically themed historical fiction games to know how to write plausible dialogue, characters, scenarios, and fictional events within a historical period, they need to study examples of events in human history." Heavy reliance on this aesthetic, however, can focus away from the overall story.
Curious, though, that we've no trace of the old knight's captain.
The game's story beats and set pieces are certainly strong, and there are a few decent twists and turns that keep the player engaged, albeit slightly predictable and generic. In other tactical RPGs such as Tactics Ogre, player choices can alter the fate of entire nations, whereas in Unicorn Overlord, the only choice the protagonist has throughout the game is to either execute or recruit potential enemy generals you've just overthrown. While there are recruitable characters that can be missed throughout your playthrough, this doesn't impact the overall narrative. It feels like Vanillaware could have added more meaning to its political approach to storytelling. To quote Vitor Costa of Superjump once more, "Most RPGs with a political approach don't live up to real political complexity. With a lot of effort, some manage to escape the stereotype of evil versus good." I would argue that Unicorn Overlord fails to even escape the evil versus good stereotype, and we the player are left with a simple revenge tale that could have dived deeper into themes of morality, idealism, and liberalism that shine in other games in the genre. Having said that, ultimately Vanillaware has created an expertly detailed piece of art in the form of Unicorn Overlord. Its elaborate battle system will be talked about for years to come, and is a colossal achievement worthy to stand among the greats of the genre. While the political themes are not as penetrating as Matsuno's work on Tactics Ogre, what Unicorn Overlord offers in return is an immeasurably enjoyable game to play. To be this captivated by a tactical RPG is something I thought not possible given my history of the genre, but through the game's alluring painterly aesthetic and abundant cast of characters, I was transfixed by the world Vanillaware has created. Aiden Moher in Fight Magic Items says that chess is a fun game, but its emotional stakes remain solely internal for the player. You either win or lose, nothing else. On the surface, this is what most tactical RPGs offer the player, but by including a rich cast of characters, the game becomes more emotionally involved, making my military pursuits to liberate the land of Feverith truly worthwhile.